This is what happens to your body. If you start buying into the wealth tax propaganda, this is what happens to your physiognomy.
Was never
yeah, Rory's fucking awesome and his family's fucking awesome. Yeah, tell me something I don't know.
Experience.
What we've got to understand is Gary being like a working class hero who became the best trader in Citibank, best trader in the world, and then gave it all up to go be a working class hero again. What a fucking absurd thing to say. And that's all cut. That's all cut. No, Barry doesn't need to include that. Barry don't need to include that. Dude, this guy's a fucking mug. This guy is a total mug. Or dishonest. I shouldn't rule out that he's just like trying to get in on the Gary's Economics algo wave. You just mean you're broke. You're just saying I'm a brokey. I'm broke. I'm poor. That's all you're saying. Okay, so guys, there is a huge amount of skinwalkers around right now, okay? See, last night we covered British Fuentes, who we will be covering again tonight. But there's also a guy on YouTube right now called Barry's Economics. Barry's Economics.
Hello.
Who is a Gary's Economics shill skinwalker orbiter. Who goes by Barry instead of Gary. And obviously we've covered Gary's Economics a few times before. I think we're going to watch the Unlearning Economics video about him as well. I heard that's a thing. I didn't know that existed, but I heard about that earlier. So we'll probably watch that, because I imagine that'll be good. But basically, if you don't know who Gary's Economics is, he's like a fake working class ex-Citibank trader who advocates for a wealth tax, but refuses to explain any of his opinions, and refuses to explain how the wealth tax would work, and refuses to engage with criticism about wealth taxes. And he's basically just a lying hack fucking loser. But for some reason, people give him way too much credit, way too much leeway. It's very embarrassing. It's very embarrassing. And he totally sucks. Basically, he lied about his whole Citibank history. He came to prominence because he wrote a book about his history being a trader and about wealth inequality, and about why he thinks the world's on the brink of collapse because of wealth inequality. And the Financial Times did an investigation into the claims in this book, and basically found that he claimed to be like the best trader in the business at the time. Blatantly was untrue. He like claimed to be in like this top earning position. Was like blatantly untrue. He was like a junior fucking role or some shit. Like he was just like not anywhere near what he fucking claimed to be. Like he was good. He was all right. But he's not anywhere near what he fucking claimed to be. And he just has a very curated persona that is clearly there to latch on to working class resentment at the moment. Yeah, claims to be the best trader at Citibank, which is just like, you're not, man. You weren't. What the fuck are you talking about? But people fell for it. People fell for it. We're talking about Gary at the minute. This is Barry. Now, Gary was on Leading. Leading is a interview show hosted by Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart. My two favourite podcasters. Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell. And Gary was on there and got interviewed. And he got into a bit of a tiff with Rory Stewart. Because Rory can get a little bit, you know, he can get a little bit anal sometimes in the interviews. And he did a little bit with Gary. And he was sort of basically saying that Gary just doesn't really have a very cohesive, intelligent message. And it's just latching on to like working class anger, which is true. But this Barry guy has made some shit video saying the disturbing bias in the rest is politics. So let's take a look.
Hello and welcome to Barry's Economics. Today I'm going to be talking about a deep core bias that is both stopping a wealth tax and also causes politicians to dismiss evidence of inequality.
So, my understanding is wealth taxes are retarded, and when they've been tried, have caused capital flight, and it's very difficult to value the assets of the people you're trying to tax. And it's like a huge administrative burden, and it's just not a good idea. That's my understanding of wealth taxes. Yeah, exactly. The cost to like value the assets and shit is like huge. And to collect and everything is just like, it's a total pain. Now, I've heard people say that stuff like property value taxes and stuff like that are a better way of going about it. But it doesn't feel like Gary ever talks about that stuff. And Rory Stewart, when I watched this interview, did have good pushback against him. I just don't know why you would be locked into a wealth tax when it seems like a stupid policy. And that was basically what Rory was saying.
So, to talk about bias today, I want to use a recent example. Gary Stevenson's appearance on the Rest is Politics podcast. And I want to look at this interview because I've rarely seen a clearer example of bias in action. For those of you that don't know, Gary Stevenson is a former Citibank trader. He's trained at the London School of Economics, and now he uses that expertise to explain how economic policy is essentially wrecking our economies and driving
Is that what he does? Is that what he does?
And The Rest is Politics, in case you don't know, is a hugely successful podcast hosted by essentially centrist experts, and its brand.
This guy, this is like heroin addict Dickers. This is like junkie Dickers.
Very brand is for a voice of like sensible, realistic, real world politics. One presenter, Roy Stewart,
this guy is a heroin
right
addict, obviously.
And one presenter, Alistair Campbell, comes from the left of politics. The podcast draws a lot of praise from people who like to think of themselves as both moderate and rational. And that's why...
Yeah, Dickers 1 year into believing a wealth tax is a good idea. This is what happens to your body. If you start buying into the wealth tax propaganda, this is what happens to your physiognomy.
This is such a powerful example of how deep this bias runs. So, let's dive into their interview with Gary.
Tell us a little bit about what you make
of editing, man.
Labour. What do you make of Rachel Reeves? What do you make of Keir Starmer? What do you make of what they're up to?
So, I don't directly lobby the politicians because I think that I was writing for The Guardian.
And like, what a immediately stupid thing to... I don't directly lobby the... Really? So you want policies enacted. You've got the platform and the clout and the connections to talk to people. And you just refuse to. You just don't want to talk to politicians. You don't want to go and talk to them and say, hey, look, I think a wealth tax is a big idea. Well, how much do you really fucking believe in it then, man? How much do you really fucking believe in it? It's almost like you just want to make YouTube videos forever and you don't actually give a fuck about the politics or the policy.
And I switched to doing the YouTube because I thought that the fact that I look how I do and sound how I do will make the working class want to listen to me. But that same thing is a disadvantage when I talk to economists, when I talk to academics, when I talk to politicians, when I talk to be honest, a lot of the media until it's becoming popular. So I don't lobby them directly, but I work with people who do.
Yeah. My honest response is that it feels like you're getting a party political broadcast. You've taken on the tone of somebody who's like addressing millions of people and whipping them up.
As part of politics.
And my guess is, if you wanted to engage with politicians, you could. I don't think you need to conclude that the reason...
100%.
I don't think the reason people aren't listening to you is that you've got an East End accent for a moment, right? These people come from backgrounds, most of them poorer than yours. They grew up in families poorer than yours, most of the Labour cabinet.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be...
Yeah, yeah. They won't let me because they've got an East End accent. Sorry, who was the Deputy Prime Minister at the time of this interview? Oh, right, that's right. Angela Rayner, the woman who grew up on a fucking council estate with an illiterate mother. Was like the first in her family to go to uni or whatever. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? What the fuck are you talking about?
Pressed or worried by your accent, and I think you're overplaying that. I think your class anger is not letting you see some of the realities of politics.
So did you hear Rory's analysis there? Class anger. What's interesting to me is that when I hear Gary...
Well, I mean, that's a charitable interpretation. That's a very charitable interpretation from Rory. The bias here, the bias in this episode, if anything, is that Rory and Alistair are far too kind, far too charitable, and we're willing to hear out Gary and take everything he's saying at face value and not say, oh, I think you're actually like a dishonest hack grifter. They're assuming that Gary has some authentic class anger when he says he does, but he doesn't. It seems like it's a fucking lie. It seems like it's a fucking lie because it's such a cop-out to avoid talking to people who would obviously listen to you.
Talk, I don't hear anger. I hear passion.
Okay, I agree with them there.
I hear urgency. And I hear a very normal
there is no class anger, you're right, because he's just like a dishonest hack, yeah.
Level of frustration that comes when you present evidence repeatedly and it gets ignored. Gary doesn't rant about class. I don't think I've ever heard him talk about class. Certainly.
He talks about inequality, dude. What is inequality, other than wealth inequality, other than a widening gap between the classes?
Not in a ranty, angry way that you would associate with the idea of class anger. He gives clear economic arguments. So why does Rory hear class anger? A clue, I think, lies in their different backgrounds. So when Gary talks about inequality, he talks about it with urgency.
No, it's because this prick Gary is battling on about, it's the 1% have got all the money and we need to do a wealth tax. It's because of that. It's because he's saying retarded shit that makes no sense. It seems to be motivated by resentment towards the upper class. That's why Rory's saying that. Because what Gary's saying doesn't make like rational sense. So Rory is hearing an irrational mindset. I think reasonably so. However, you should just assume that Gary is rational and actually being dishonest.
And that's because he's got direct experience of it. Because it's touched his life and it's touched the lives of the people around him. He's seen up close the devastating effects of inequality. Rory, by contrast, has grown up never having experienced financial inequality in any direct way. His background is he went to Eton. His father was head of MI6, which is extraordinary really because this isn't an episode of Slow Horses. This is the real world. So he had a safety net. He was never at the sharp end of inequality. He was financially secure. So inequality was never a direct...
Rory's fucking awesome and his family's fucking awesome. Yeah, tell me something I don't know.
...experience for Rory, or anyone he grew up with. Inequality was, in effect, theoretical. It was an idea. It's just one of the white papers, one of the dry ideas in order to help society. Which means that when they talk about it, they're talking about it from a much more dispassionate and distanced way. It's never going to affect them because they're fine. They've got a safety net, they've got land, they've got property, or whatever they've got that allows them to be able to afford to go to Eton and have the background that they have. So policies like a wealth tax, there's no emotional connection to it. And there's...
Yeah, good. Why are you getting emotionally attached to a wealth tax? Why are you getting emotionally attached to a specific form of tax policy? Wouldn't you just want the tax policy that creates the highest yield for government services while having the lowest burden and allowing for maximum economic opportunity and welfare for lower classes? You do want a dispassionate analysis. You don't want an emotional attachment towards one specific form.
Certainly less urgency. So for somebody like Rory, who lives in the world of measures, calm, theoretical policy, Gary's urgency doesn't sound like urgency. To Rory, it sounds like anger. Now there's also an even deeper issue here that we know from extensive research. So people from lower socio-economic backgrounds
here we go.
Tend to be far more attuned to emotion. They talk with more emotion. And studies show that they even read emotion more sensitively on people's faces.
Guys, you see, the thing is that Rory's rich, which means he's just kind of less human. It just kind of means he's less human. And what we've got to understand is Gary being a working class hero who became the best trader in Citibank, best trader in the world, and then gave it all up to go be a working class hero again. You know, Gary, on the other hand, Gary is like an actual human being. He's got like emotions and a soul. Wow, okay, okay.
Now I'm kinda wondering how a debate between this guy and Clement Attlee would go.
Maybe the $5, thank you.
The reason for this is because they don't have a financial safety net. Social bonds are far more important for survival. In fact, they're crucial for survival. So both socially and culturally, they are hardwired to read and express emotion. However, in elite settings, in well-off settings, because you have safety net, you have as much, you don't need people as much. And that means that you create a bit of distance because you've got the luxury of being able to do that. Yeah, people are annoying, aren't they? I mean, some of you are probably finding me annoying right now, and I'm not even in the room with you. Imagine having somebody else in the room with you. Right there. So the opportunity to be able to create distance and give themselves space actually changes their hardwiring. Culturally and socially, they are hardwired for both distance, that's emotional distance, and also physical distance. They get more of their own space. Sometimes 62-room mansions of their own space. So in higher socioeconomic groups, showing emotion or displaying emotion is often coded not just as wrong, but as bad.
Okay,
as
I think the... This is based on a clip of Rory saying, hey man, I don't think your accent is actually a barrier for you talking to the Labour government, given that they're all working class too. Maybe you've got like class anger or something clouding your judgment, because you could just go talk to politicians. And Gary going, no mate, no mate, no mate. That's the clip that this is built off of. That's the clip. That's what we're talking about here. Is Rory is an autistic sociopath because he's rich. Because he told Gary that you could just go talk to politicians. What a fucking absurd thing to say.
Unbalanced and, crucially, low status, which means there's a reason to discount a person. So a bias creeps in. If you speak passionately, you must be angry. And if you're angry, you're less credible, you're not thinking rationally, and I should not listen to you. So, let's see how that plays out in the interview in real time. Next, Rory essentially kind of calls
new
out
clip. Let's go.
Gary. He states in a way that kind of almost feels personal that Gary is patronizing clever people, and that's why nobody is listening to him. And Gary accepts that point, and he takes Rory's comments seriously, but not personally. And he attempts to explain the reason, the rationale behind his patronizing attitude towards elite economists.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be impressed or worried by your accent, and I think you're overplaying that. I think your class anger is not letting you see some of the realities of politics. I think what's more likely to be a problem is they don't appreciate being patronized, because they also feel they've done economics degrees, they've studied this stuff quite seriously, and you're talking to them like they're idiots. You're saying, I can tell you what's going to happen in 5 years. This is the way the world is.
This is a good point,
I
actually.
did economics. I'm smart at maths. And Rachel Reeves is like, yeah, well, I was a,
Rory
I was a
cooking.
chess
Rory
champion.
cooking.
I'm pretty smart at maths too. And she's going to be listening to this thinking,
There's some important background here. Listen, let me say what happened when I went to Oxford, right? I went back to Oxford. We had the lecture on interest rates. And I was at that point...
What did you cut out there? What did you cut out there?
I cannot explain...
did economics. I'm smart at maths. And Rachel Reeves is like, yeah, well, I was a, I was a chess champion. I'm pretty... Yeah, well, I was a chess champion. I'm pretty smart at maths too. And she's going to be listening to this thinking,
There's some important background here to understand, which is that when you study economics, the vast majority of economic students want to work in finance. And working in finance is enormously better paid than working in any form of economic public service.
I remember what he says here. There's no way Barry cut this out. I remember what he said here. He basically says, only shit economists go into government. He basically says, yeah, Rachel Reeves should be condescended to because she went into government, which means she's a shit economist. That's what he says here, dude.
The vast majority of the best students will go into finance. Some of them will choose to go into public service. But you have to consider, imagine you are a young LSE student that has good enough grades to get a job as a trader, and you are not from a rich background. If you go and work in academia, government, central banking, you are going to have to do a master's, a PhD, a postdoc, and you're not going to make any money for 20 years. You're going to be massively in debt by the time you make money. I was a multimillionaire at 25. Wow. And when my brother needed to buy a house, I helped him. And now my sister needs to buy a house, I'm helping her. The truth
this guy's so
is,
cool, isn't he?
the nature of our economy and academic economics means there are very unlikely to be
best trader in Citibank,
if any, economists from working class backgrounds in the public debate. So the end result is the vast majority of economists in public background either couldn't get a job in finance because their grades weren't good enough, or they were so rich it doesn't matter. That's the truth. So the end academic economics means there are very unlikely to be. I was a multimillionaire at 25. And when my brother needed to buy a house, I helped him. And now my sister needs to buy a house, I'm helping her. The truth is, the nature of our economy and academic economics means there are very unlikely to be many, if any, economists from working class backgrounds in the public debate. So the end result is the vast majority of economists in public background either couldn't get a job in finance because their grades weren't good enough, or they were so rich it doesn't matter. That's the truth. And these guys, they went and saw the best students go work in the city, make millions of pounds. They went and locked themselves in a library in Oxford for 10 years, and they don't appreciate somebody coming back after making millions of pounds, after beating them in undergrad, and saying, well, can I explain to you? Listen, let me say what happened when I went back to Oxford, right? I went back to Oxford. We had the
so all of that was cut out. All of that where he's just basically slating Rachel Reeves. Basically, he was asked about Rachel Reeves. He just slates Rachel Reeves that entire time. Any government economist, anyone that's in fucking, you know, a financial position in the government, just slates and says, yeah, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. They're all fucking... That's what he just said. That's what he was just saying. And that's all cut. That's all cut. No, Barry doesn't need to include that. Barry don't need to include that.
On interest rates. And I was at that point one of the most successful interest rate traders in the world. And we had at that point incorrectly predicted that interest rates would go back up 10 years in a row. And I went to him and said, why do you think we're so bad at predicting interest rates? Is that non-fun
in the chat? Friend of the show, non-fun in the chat.
He said, no, you're wrong. We always knew rates would stay zero for 10 years. This is in 2017. That's just categorically wrong. I was quite shocked, and I tried to explain to him that was wrong. I said, okay, I'm going to send you the data. I went back, I sent him the data. He said, oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. We have been wrong. We have mispredicted interest rates. We have mispredicted the strength of the broad economy for 10 years. That was it.
No, it is real non-fun.
These guys have been wrong on the big economic issue of our time for 10 years in a row. This guy hadn't even noticed. These guys are so...
wait, let's see where this guy picks it up here.
I can tell you what's going to happen in 5 years. This is the way the world is.
This is a good point.
I did economics. I'm smart at maths. And Rachel Reeves is like, yeah, well, I was a chess champion. I'm pretty smart at maths too. And she's going to be listening to this.
There's some important background here. Listen, let me say what happened when I went back to
Oxford. Look at that cut, man.
I went back to Oxford. We had the lecture on interest rates. And I was, at that point, one of the most successful interest rate traders in the world. And we had, at that point, incorrectly predicted that interest rates would go back up 10 years in a row. And I went to him and said, why do you think we're so bad at predicting interest rates? This is an Oxford macroeconomics professor. He said, no, you're wrong. We always knew rates would stay zero for 10 years. This is in 2017. That's just categorically wrong. I was quite shocked, and I tried to explain to him that was wrong. I said, okay, I'm going to send you the data. I went back, I sent him the data. He said, oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. We have been wrong. We have mispredicted interest rates. We have mispredicted the strength of the broad economy for 10 years. That was it. He wasn't interested in talking. These guys have been wrong on the big economic issue of our time for 10 years in a row. This guy hadn't even noticed. These guys are so bad.
Is it even true? I don't know if I believe this.
They are unable to recognize that they are bad. I cannot explain to you how serious this situation is. Listen, I know I do patronize them, but the truth is they're terrible. They're terrible, and the world's falling apart, and they themselves get rich while it happens.
But the professors of economics at Oxford are not getting rich while it happens.
They get about 40
You're confusing two different types of resentment.
Yeah,
on one hand, you've got a model where...
Yeah, dude, I'm so glad Rory caught that, man. Dude, how can you hate Rory Stewart? How can anyone hate this guy? Rory Stewart's so fucking awesome. So glad he caught that. How the fuck is an Oxbridge professor getting rich off of inequality and shit? Bro, they're not fucking bankers and shit, man. Come on.
There's like the super billionaires who are buying seven houses.
You think the professors at Oxford are not rich?
Well, no, wait. You're doing two different things. On the one hand, you're like...
Dude, they have like a 6-figure salary. They're like rich like that. They're not rich like fucking, you know, The Big Short. You know, they're not like that, obviously. And you're trying to make it sound like they're the second group, and they're not.
People who become professors are losers who couldn't get a job in a bank. And if they had been smarter, they would have got a job in a bank.
Yeah.
And so there are different narratives. They're all got the same narrative, which is...
No, but the thing,
I'm angry, I'm working class,
these guys who become professors,
are rich and ignorant.
They don't make a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
They are there because they don't need the money. They come from rich families. They come from rich families, Rory. They don't need the money.
So in response to Rory's question there, Gary's offered a stark example of essentially elite blindness, like how even a top macroeconomics professor at the UK's very top university is dangerously out of touch.
Is it even true though? Is it true? Is it even true? I don't see any reason to believe
Rory, he doesn't even hear it. If he'd listened to what Gary had said, he'd concede something.
He doesn't hear, he's not going to concede anything because he doesn't assume that story to be true, I don't think. I think Rory is giving him a bit of like, you know, showing him a bit of good faith and being like, okay, I hear this guy out. But yeah, he's not taking his fucking story about, I totally owned the Oxford professor and then everyone clapped. And that student's name was Albert Einstein. Yeah, he's not taking that seriously. Yeah, as you shouldn't. As you should, rather. Yeah, that is the sort of thing you should probably be like, okay, all right, Gary. All right, Gary. All right, Gary. Whatever you say, Gary. You got evidence of that, Gary. Josh show us those emails.
But Rory's pre-written internal story about Gary's class anger actually blinds him to the outrageous fact that Gary has just related to him, that
it's a fact,
elite
apparently.
institutions are missing the economic reality of everyday people and they're not even aware of it. Instead,
wow, so true, man.
Rory takes issue with
it's
defending
baffling.
the
There are
wealth
actually people
or
that Gary's shtick works on. Like, I guess this is the guy. This is the guy it works on.
monetary situation of Oxford professors. But Rory jumped into that point. So why is Rory taking it so personally? Firstly, it's Rory's expectation of what he thinks Gary is going to say. He's already got that written in his own head.
And so there are different narratives. They're all got the same narrative, which is,
no, but the thing,
I'm angry,
these
I'm
guys,
working class,
these guys who become professors,
are rich and ignorant.
They don't
He
make...
restates his point about class anger. That narrative.
I mean, that is
he's
what
got
Gary
in-
just said. No, that is what Gary just laid out. He gave a shaggy dog story to try and make it sound more legit. But no, that is what Gary was saying. He's saying like, these rich fucking economists don't know what the fuck they're talking about and they don't have to care. They don't even need the money. They don't give a fuck. That's what he's doing. That is what he's doing. Dude, this guy's a fucking mug. This guy is a total mug. Or dishonest. I shouldn't rule out that he's just like trying to get in on the Gary's economics algo wave.
His head, even saying that all of Gary's arguments are about class anger, which is, again, I really struggle to see the evidence for that. Also, and forgive me for this, Rory, but I do have to name it, Rory does work for elite institutions. He works for Yale. He's got a lot of vested interest and probably a lot of affection.
Yeah, and his
for
Yale lectures are
people
fucking
like
awesome.
Oxford professors. But it's certainly going to be a bias when it feels like Gary is attacking the very institutions that Rory works for, gets paid for. And again in the interview, you can see Rory responding not to what Gary is saying, but responding to how Gary is saying it, and also who Gary is saying it about. And those biases ramp up even more as the interview concludes. Have a watch.
My last question. There's a lot of things going on. I mean, you're making observations about psychology, lack of kindness and care in the home, structural inequalities of wealth, class, masculinity. Do you ever worry that some of these things are getting overlapped and overlaid in your mind so that anger, class, family backgrounds, school, masculinity are feeding in ways which are misleading you? That if you kind of got back to your kind of self at LSE, trying to look at how you frame economic policy, that you might want to take a bit of a step back from that degree of kind of...
It's an incredible thing to say, isn't it? to not just the person that you've invited into your podcast, but also is an expert on economics, has a bestseller about economics, and you're essentially saying maybe all of the issues are getting mixed in your...
He was like a good trader. He was like a good trader. He was not the best in the world. He's not like some fucking crazy expert, dude. I don't know why we're giving him so much fucking credit. It's so painful. It's so painful. Dude, Gary sucks, okay? Gary fucking sucks.
in your head, and you should go back to economics school. But leaving that aside, to reinforce the point that Gary, he's taking it seriously and not personally. He even takes that, what I would
why has he got a mug with a broken handle on his desk?
A kind of like personal attack.
Empty mug with a broken handle.
He tries to answer in good faith what Rory has just asked him.
On like a
How
fake
do you
desk.
make sure that all the things in your head are not baffling you or confusing you? How do you keep yourself grounded? And this is how he answers that.
From that degree of kind of...
I do worry about that. I do worry about that. And then that's why I still trade. That's why I still trade. Listen, you want to be a good trader, you want to make money every year, you haven't got no space for emotional biases. You got to be right. You got to be right. You got to be right.
Oh my God, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
I keep betting. I keep winning. The truth is, the best paid 10,000 economists in the world, they are all traders. And I'm the only one that's going to speak to you because they get paid not to speak to you. I keep trading.
Dude.
I keep betting.
I'm losing my mind. I'm having a fucking episode.
I think I'm right at this. And I think I'm going to keep being right.
Yeah. As humans, we can get tangled up
Holy
in our own
fuck.
narratives, our own biases. And this is how I stay tethered to the real world, by trading, where being wrong costs real money. There are stakes, it's high risk, and the market's forced you to test your ideas against reality. That's how I stay grounded, which suggests a reversal. And I'd like to ask Rory this directly. If your background primes you to prioritize restraint, status, and manner over substance, especially around areas of wealth, disadvantage, and inequality, and it stops you questioning elite institutions, what are you doing
So
to actually...
in every clip, Rory's just been like, right, other than the fact that he's not just saying that Gary's dishonest. That's where the big issue is here. Is Rory not just saying he thinks Gary's being dishonest? I think Rory can actually tell, but he's trying not to say it. You know, he's trying not to say, he's trying to give like, you know, a bit of space for Gary to explain himself, to win him over. I think Rory just doesn't want to say that he thinks Gary is like a total grifter, populist grifter. But that is clearly the implication. It's like, do you think because he has sort of presupposed that there's a bias. But the reason he's done that is because he knows that Gary's conclusion is fucking stupid. Because anyone with any sense knows that Gary's conclusion is fucking stupid. Because wealth tax have been tried, and they suck. So, like, I don't know why there's this insane emotional attachment to having a wealth tax. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. So Rory's pressing on that. Rory's trying to get, like, an explanation that makes sense as to why he's going for the wealth tax specifically. The one he's offering to give Gary to, you know, help himself out of this pit is saying, oh, I think you're clouded by class anger. I think you've got this rich working class upbringing, you know, you've got this real classic working class upbringing. So you must, you must have a lot of class anger. But no, it's not that at all. That's, you know, Gary plays up his working class creds, I think, a little bit. Certainly his accent. And no, he's just dishonest. He's just dishonest. He's just lying. He doesn't actually care. It's just like easy to say, yeah, just take a bunch of the rich people's money away, innit? And then you win, right? Just do a wealth. The thing is, there's all these people with all this money. 1% has got more than the 99%. Like, you know, that's all he wants to do.
Actually hear the argument when it arrives on your doorstep with passion and urgency. And that's key. Because if Rory is dismissing what Gary says because of the way he's saying it, and I like Rory, I actually like him. I think he's trying his best. I think he's a public servant in the very
No, there is a deep dive into his past. If you, there's a Financial Times article about him. We read it on stream at some point. There's a Financial Times article about Gary's past where they went around and they interviewed people he used to work with. And yeah, he totally embellishes it in his book, like fucking crazy.
Sense of the word. But if it's happening to Gary, an elite economist, on this, a rational, moderate, centrist podcast by somebody that's trying their best, like Rory, where else is that bias happening? Because it's going to be much worse in other places.
Have you said maybe your conclusion is bad?
But I'm not doing this video to shame the rest of this politics. Well, maybe I am, just a touch, just a little bit.
They own you.
It's because I expect better from you.
Rory and Alistair own you.
You've let yourself down. You've let us down.
This is like embarrassing.
Yeah. But I'm doing this to name the bias.
So there are different narratives. They're all got the same narrative, which
Wolverine
is I'm angry, I'm working class,
these guys who become professors,
are rich and ignorant.
Because this has to be about naming the bias so we can fix it. Because we can't argue bias away in just one big video or speech, but we have to chip away at it from every single side. So this is what you do with bias. First, you name it. If you can't see bias, you can't fight it. And language makes the invisible visible. If you see it, name it. Second, break the bubble. So talk to real people outside your circle, which softens prejudice faster than any statistic will. Because often people aren't listening to the statistics because they're too obsessed with their own idea of how you're sounding, whether you might be angry or not.
I think your class anger is not letting you see some of the realities of politics.
Third, slow it down. Bias thrives in snap judgments, and you can see that in the interview. Like calming down forces the brain to think and not stereotype. And finally, shift the culture. And the more that we talk about bias means that we're not taking things personally.
I don't know how much more else I can do.
Usually, I like to say it. Please, if you see inequality, report it to the British Inequality Police. See it, say it, sorted.
It's like so unfunny.
More detailed breakdown of...
So unfunny.
Hello.
So what does he do? What does he do on his channel? For the 100th time, tax wealth not work. Dude.
Hello and welcome to Barry's Economics, an unofficial companion channel to Gary's Economics. My name's Barry, a comedian whose desire to do comedy led him to bankruptcy and homelessness, but after 25 years dragging along the
I can see how. Yeah, I can see how. I really can. With that second camera, fourth wall break bit that makes no sense in every one of your videos, I can see how you went homeless trying to be a comedian, man. Really.
Society went on to build this successful community comedy club. The reason why I'm doing this unofficial companion channel to Gary's Economics is that while we have similar backgrounds, Gary is a total success, a millionaire trader who really deeply understands the hard economics of inequality. Unlike Gary, Barry failed hard for over 2 decades. But that means that I became intimate with a different type of economics, which is the social and behavioral economics of inequality. And by that,
yeah, you mean you're poor.
And behavior.
You just mean you're poor. You just mean you're broke. You're just saying I'm a brokey. I'm broke. I'm poor. That's all you're saying. Yeah, the school of hard knocks. Saying we're all broke, man. It's fine, but you know, it doesn't give you any special insight.
Behaviors that keep you entrenched in a toxic system. How poverty and inequality affects the way you feel, the way you see, the way you think, not just about yourself, but everything else around you. The way that system keeps you in your place. It keeps you powerless. I mean, it gaslights you into thinking that everything is your fault. You're the reason you're struggling.
Of course.
And that's just not the case. How the system underpins birthright and privilege. So on this channel, I'll be sharing ways to talk about inequality without making it sound like you're just complaining. Ways to change the story in our own heads, as well as the story that we tell other people and the stories out there, because finding a shared language to talk about it is a sure way of changing the system. And if you haven't actually heard of Gary's Economics, I'd go there first. He's the GOAT, he's the main guy. It's a brilliant channel.
Yeah, terrible stuff.